Welcome to Podiatry Practice Mastery. My name is Don Pelto, and I have Naeem here with me. And we are going to be talking about some skills for those that are listening that are entrepreneurs. So he is a speaker, kind of a trainer, coach. Welcome to the show.
Hey Don, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So tell me a little bit about your backstory, how you kind of got into this whole coaching, speaking sphere, and kind of what you're working on, what you're excited about.
Absolutely, for sure. So I kind of got into coaching and speaking by accident, also organically. I was working on Wall Street. I worked at a fund of hedge funds, and I didn't really like what I was doing. And then I started thinking about, hey, what do I really want to do with my life? I just graduated from college, and I was in New York City, and I was like just young, and had never really thought about those things on what do I really want to do. I was kind of just following the modus operandi. So I started reading books and I started going to events and I hired a coach and I worked for Tony Robbins for many years. And uh,
Hmm.
then I just started my own company after that. Like ultimately, I did always want to have my own business and I loved the things I was learning and I loved that I was able to help people with living more fulfilled lives, achieving their goals and being happier and more fulfilled and all that stuff.
Wow. And what now having the courage to do something like that, kind of going against the flow, right? Because the modus operandi was just to go maybe get an MBA, go into business, something like that. Was it hard to do this, to have the courage to do this? Was it the books that inspired you? Was it the people? And how was that?
Yeah, that's a great question for sure. Definitely took some courage because again, my parents were like, "What are you doing?" Like MBA, doctor, or something like that, which I love too. Like nothing wrong with that. I have a lot of friends that are on those paths too. And I honestly thought that that's what I would do with my life. So sometimes I'm like, "Oh, this is kind of bizarre and cool and exciting that I'm doing something totally different than I thought." But definitely the books were definitely supportive. Like I always tell people, you got to read every day and feed your mind good stuff and also mentors and coaches. Like having a coach is probably, and I would still say is probably the most or one of the most impactful things I've done, because it's really putting yourself around people that are successful. And that's why I like talking to people like yourself, right? It's like I'm building my business. I'm like, how can I connect with other successful business owners that are ahead of me that can help me grow? So I'd
Yeah.
say that, and then the events too, like going to see Tony Robbins originally as a client, and then that made me want to work for him because I was so inspired. But like putting yourself in those environments where you're going to transform and forcing yourself to do it in like a good way, where it's like, oh, every year I'm going to go in an event. Every year I go to a strategic coach multiple times a year, so it like forces me to grow my business and think in different ways.
Yeah, yeah, both of us are in. That's what we met. We're both in strategic coach. Now that's group coaching. Um, I'm not familiar that much with individual coaching, and I think that's what you do now. So talk a little bit about like how does that work? Because a lot of people listening, they might not know they even need a coach. What are some of the things that you kind of work on, and then the other kind of tips that you have?
Yeah, sure. There's this great video, and there's also a great book. So the videos from Bill Gates and Eric Schmidt. I'm sure everybody knows Bill Gates. Eric Schmidt was the former CEO of Google, now Alphabet. But they both said everybody needs a coach, and
Mhm.
it's not in the sense where like they're better than you or there's something wrong with you. Like the most successful people in the world, they want to perform better, and they have coaches usually. And most of us think athletes, which is obviously the kind of stereotypical kind of context where you have a coach, but the successful business owners, actors, salespeople, podiatrists, doctors, like they have coaches too. So a lot of times people don't realize that. But the cool thing about having a coach is it's like somebody that's like totally dedicated to you and like seeing you from outside of the field. Like, because again, I have blind spots. We all have blind spots. We're in the weeds. So like focused on you, objectively sharing insights, and also the big thing is not really telling you what to do. It's more asking you really
What
thoughtful
you want.
questions.
Mhm.
Yeah, and like making you reflective. And again, the big challenge with a lot of things is we all have loving friends and family, but sometimes they're projecting their own beliefs about what they think we should do versus like, and it's a skill set. It's not something you just kind of start doing. Like you learn how to manage your mindset and your belief systems and your values and your nervous system so you don't like get into like that amygdala reaction where, oh, like you should do this, you should do that, or kind of coming from a place of fear, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know. I think a lot of us, I'm just speaking to myself because I can't speak to others. we look for someone where what do they say? Everyone's looking to be plugged back into the umbilical cord. We're looking to be
Yeah.
led, and it's a challenge for us to actually go in and say, well, where do I want to be 3 years from now? Like where, and then having someone to keep you accountable. So in terms of coaching, like having someone meet with you weekly or monthly or whatever it is and say, okay, you said you were going to do this. This is what you wanted. Do you still want to go there? Where are you at? Is that kind of what you do? Is you sit down with people weekly or monthly and go through that stuff?
Totally, yeah. That's kind of the baseline foundation of it. Like that's kind of like the I don't want to say lowest level, but like just kind of the core of what we do. And then there's much more like high level skill set things. Again, like seeing what's going on, to pick up on patterns, like helping people uncover their limiting beliefs or stories that are getting in their way, and also starting to being like lovingly, but like giving them a kick in the butt. We all need to
Yeah.
like be called out on our BS. And when I say BS, it's not the BS most people think about, it's our belief systems. Because
Yeah.
again, we all, like you said, I love that. That was a great metaphor. We all want to be plugged back into the umbilical cord because we kind of do. Like we're not, humans aren't like made for thriving. They're made to survive because we're
Mhm.
still a very young species, like relative in the grand scheme of things. And we're still wondering if there's like a saber-tooth tiger or like somebody that's trying to eat us. So, and that's important. We got to make sure we survive first, but our brain is wired for surviving and protecting ourselves versus like going out and like flourishing. So we got to train ourselves to do that. And that's why it's cool to, again, have somebody that's going to kind of push you out consistently and train you to keep on building that mindset.
Yeah, let's give, can you give like two or three some practical tips that can help people that are listening, either whether it be
Yeah.
books or actual mindfulness or I don't know. I have mine that I use, but what
Yeah.
are some really kind of some low-hanging fruit that people could do that they should be doing in their lives to make
Yeah,
their lives
sure.
happier?
Sure. Yeah. So I'd say one, let me think. So I'd say my favorite thing, I don't want to say my favorite, but the thing that was for me, and it sounds basic and maybe a lot of people do it, but a lot of people also don't, is just reading.
Yep.
Like every day, read for at least 15, 20, 30 minutes if you can. If you can't, even 10 minutes, even 5 minutes, like open up a book. And then it's also the type of book. Like if people really want to improve their mindset and their personal growth and their wellness, read a book on personal growth like every day for, and I do it every day still just because I built that habit and it's kind of who I am now and I love it. But like if you just build that habit by itself, you're gonna start naturally, it's gonna compound, and you can't not grow and build a better, happier, more fulfilled life if you start doing that habit. So
Mhm.
I'd say that's definitely one super powerful one. I'd say another one is like, so and these are all things you could do for free, right? Like of course people go find a coach. I definitely do that too if you want, but I'm giving you things that people don't need to do that, like need money to do it. You can do this right now today. So the second thing would be put yourself around, proximity is power. So that's one of the biggest things I learned from Tony. It's like who you spend time with is who you become. So if you want to become better at money, go hang out with the five best people you know that are just crushing it in money, right? They know how to invest. They don't spend more than they earn. They're very frugal. They're intelligent. They're good with money. If you want to have a more intimate relationship with your partner, go find five couples or just a person that's really good at that and thriving in that area. Because most of the times, what do? We do the opposite. Like we go to our guy friends or our girlfriends, and we kind of talk about how men are this way, women are that way, and how relationships don't work. Versus like finding those people that are kind of making it happen and like spending time with them, right? So that's number two. Just put yourself
Great.
around in proximity with like high performing people that make you grow and stretch. And then I'd say three, and again, this is kind of along the lines of free things. I was going to say go to an event, but that you have to pay for events usually, right? Like, but there's a beauty in paying. If you invest in yourself, there's the law of the universe. Like if you pay for stuff, it makes you commit at a higher level. And also, nothing in life is free. There's a price for everything in life in a good way, right? But the third thing I'd say is meditation. I love meditating, and it's not like it doesn't have to be. It's not, and it doesn't have to be a spiritual thing. For me, it's more a focus thing. It's like for me, it's like how can I perform better? So for me, when I meditate, I operate like I haven't measured it, but like maybe 5, 10 times better than I don't. Like because
Yeah.
my head's above the clouds, I'm out of the weeds. For me, the funny analogy or example is like in the Matrix when Neo's dodging those bullets. It's like things slow down for me, and I can like instead of like being in fight or flight in our nervous system, the sympathetic, right? It
Yep.
kind of helps you get into your parasympathetic, where you're just kind of in a more flow state and calm and relaxed.
Yeah.
even though there's like fires burning around you, metaphorically speaking, and you could handle them much better.
Any, do you, those are all great. Do you do actively practice like journaling or gratitude journaling or anything
Yeah.
like that? Any tips for people? Like, is it a waste of time? Why write and not just think about stuff?
Yeah, no, that's a great one too. And that's honestly, that's one I probably would put down too. Writing is like, I always say reading is a superpower and also writing is a superpower. Like writing helps you articulate your thoughts, helps you get the loops out. Writing it down is important, like you just asked me, because it gets you out of your loops in your head. If you keep it in your head and you just think about it, you're just going to run loops over and over and over. So if you actually put it down, that's like amazing therapy, right? Some people have negative connotations towards therapy, but like amazing therapy, amazing like way to articulate your thoughts better, amazing way to articulate your voice better too and speak better. But writing for sure every day, journal as well. That's one of my practices. So in the morning, I write down things I'm grateful for. At the end of the day, I write down 3 wins from the day that I took away from Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach. So
Yeah,
that's an awesome practice as well.
that's awesome. How can people get out of the whole Dan calls it the gap or like the
Yeah.
comparison gap? You know, you're kind of comparing to others versus just like measuring against yourself in your own game. Do you have any
Mm,
tips for that for people?
that's a great question.
These
Um,
are hard ones I'm giving you.
yeah, right. Well, it's funny because again, like yeah, as humans, we kind of do that, especially high achievers, right? Because to set a goal, you have to notice what's missing. And high achievers, it's like they hit a goal, they make $1 million, they start a business, they get the house, whatever it is, and then instead of like appreciating it and like smelling the roses, they're like, all right, now what's next?
Yep.
So they're kind of wired that way. So it's a double-edged sword. It's like, all right, let's keep on going, and oh, that's not a big deal. Let's keep on going. They kind of beat themselves up. So I love that concept of the gap in the game, where it's like most people that are in their gap, they're always noticing what's missing.
Yeah.
Which again, it's cool because that helps you achieve more, but you have to find that balance, and you got to turn around every so often every day, ideally, and even more than that, if you want to kind of just stay in a solid state where it's like you turn around, you appreciate all the great things you've already done and all the great things that you haven't even had to do. That you're blessed to a lot of. If you're listening to this podcast, you're pretty blessed. Again, this might be an assumption, but for the most part, you're not without internet, and you have a device to listen to it on. So it's that too. So I'd say, but specifically, maybe it's for me doing the appreciation and the gratitude and focusing on the gain helps me not compare myself to people that are way beyond where I am. So
Yeah.
I'd say that might be the tool, right? Where it's like, instead of like looking at my friend who sold his company for $100 million and I didn't do that yet. One is it's also being, hey, I'm happy for him. I'm grateful for him. And that's so cool that that happened. But also being in the game where it's like noticing all the things that already have happened to you, because most people in the world, 99% would give their left leg to be in our position and have our
Not in our
problems.
position right now. I agree. And I think what you were saying in terms of the initial three things, like listening, I read, so I basically I learned this, so it's called Miracle Morning. It's a good
Hmm.
book.
It's a great
Talks
book.
about that. I just basically bookmark a book 5 pages forward and I'll read like 5 pages. Um, I've also heard, and I try to do this, I try to read the same book at least 2 or 3 times. I think in the past I
Nice.
used to like go through them and just to get through them, I don't know, I have like this high, I don't know, you want to just finish stuff, to complete stuff. But
Yep.
like I'm reading the second time now, the Be Your Future Self. This is like the second time I'm going
Yeah,
through it.
it's a great
And
book.
just kind of as I think I transform because I'm a different person. A lot of times it's not even the book that changes, but I'm in a different place and I
Yeah.
can take in these ideas. And it's the same way, like you said, about having friends or having like coaches and these coaches or these other acquaintances. A lot of people think you're going to have to give up all your friends. That's not what it is. It's just you're replacing it with other people that are just friends that can inspire you to do better.
Yep.
That's, and if you don't have any, find books that they're in. They can be almost be your friend that way too.
Yep. It's so
Like
true.
books or like a mastermind group of people like that. I think those are beneficial. But I think everyone needs a therapist. I think almost a coach is a glorified therapist, someone to talk to
Hmm.
and get out of your head about certain things.
Totally. Yeah. You said a lot of great things. I love what you said about the books, where it's like, to me, if I'm reading Einstein's biography, like, oh, I get to hang out with Einstein. He's my mentor for a little bit. And I could always go back to him, or Edison or Ford or Abraham Lincoln or whoever it is. So that was an awesome one.
Yeah.
I forgot the other two things you said before that, but also with the coaching, yeah, like it's kind of like the thing. I've had therapists before, and there's not good or bad in every industry. There's great quality and there's not so great quality, right? Same with coaches, same with podiatrists, same with doctors, same with asset managers. But the thing that I loved about coaching is they're more focused. A lot of times, and again, this isn't meant, it's not a generalization, but a lot of times in therapy, people kind of go and they talk about their problems, and you're never gonna. There's an endless. That's a never-ending rabbit hole. But the thing I loved about coaching was a huge insight for me, where it's like I just focused on the outcome. Like it's okay to focus on the problem and understand it, but you'll never fully understand why somebody said something to you in first grade, or your parents did this, or a relationship didn't work out the way you wanted it to, and you could go in a loop for forever. And that same old adage, whatever you focus on is what's gonna expand. So instead of like, for me, that was huge for the coaching, because I was like, all right, instead of like, what's the problem? Most people are there in problem frame, which is what I call it. But we want to switch it to outcome frame. Instead of like, what's the problem? Whose fault is it? Why did this happen? It's like, what's my outcome? What do I want? Where do I want to go? How do I want to make things better? And
Yeah.
that'll like radically change your destiny in any area of your life.
There was this real simple concept. I don't know, you probably got into it already in coach, called the experience transformer.
Yeah,
And
same deal.
so within coach, you kind of look at what worked, what didn't work, and what you would do different. Really simple, but
Yep.
like you can go back to your traumas in the past and you can reframe them using that little tool. And I tell you, when we went through that, I went back and I picked the hardest things in my life, like the thing, and I
Yeah.
went back, well, what was good about that? And it was hard to find what was bad about that. And if I could do it over again, like what would I have done different? Like, and that's a real powerful way to kind of reframe our past trauma. Or even I do this with residents in surgery. I'm like, okay, this is the case. What went well? Okay, this went
Yeah.
well. What didn't go well? Well, you cut the tendon, you messed it up. What would you do different? Like how would you do the surgery different? And I think having these higher level ways of thinking, that really gives you power. So no matter what you encounter, you can use these thinking processes. I think that's the key, the gratitude process, these thinking processes that no one teaches you this in school.
Yep. It's so true. I love that you use it in your practice. That's so awesome. I love doctors and I love medicine and health, and that was probably the other thing I wanted to do. Like I saw a passion about like health and wellness and medicine. But one thing, just like, again, you said we aren't taught this stuff. So I was talking to one of my friends who's an ER doctor, and like a lot of times doctors don't know how to handle like intense situations. So I love that you're using those tools to like work with their patients' emotions so they can make a better decision versus like, it's hard to manage that if you don't have the skill set. So I love that you're actually
Yeah.
incorporating this stuff with your patients and teaching
You're
your
not
people.
taught. Yeah, you're not taught.
Yeah,
Cool. Well, I don't know if you have any other last things, or if you want to tell people how they can learn more about you and kind of what you do.
totally. Yeah. So if anybody wants to learn more or check me out, they can go to my website. It's naeemmahmood.com, just my full name dot com. They could
I'll put a
also,
link underneath this. Hmm.
perfect. Yeah. And they can go to my podcast is Peak Performance Humans, which talks about all the habits and mindsets and belief systems and behaviors of top performers, right? So I love to like I like to find people that are really excellent and across any different category of life, and I like to kind of extract their beliefs, their thoughts, their behaviors. Because the cool thing about that is then you can model it. Like that's one of the best ways to learn. It's like how can you model success and kind of shorten the what's the word, the learning curve, right?
Yeah,
So that's what I talk about on the podcast as well. Or they can go to my YouTube as well. I put a lot of videos on similar topics and subjects.
great. Hey, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
absolutely, Don. It was wonderful talking to you.